the appointment.
Thank you. Members, do I have a nomination for a chair this morning?
I'll nominate Councillor George Fielding.
And I second that nomination.
Perfect. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'm Councillor George Fielding. First, a bit of housekeeping. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery via the stairwells. Do not attempt to use the lifts. Please assemble at Queen Victoria's statue in front of the civic offices. In order to comply with the Guildhall Trust's fire marshal regulations, anyone who signed in at the Guildhall reception desk should sign out when leaving the building at the end of today's meeting. Members of the press and public are also permitted to record the meeting on the understanding that it neither disrupts the meeting nor records those stating explicitly they do not wish to be recorded. Please can everyone use the microphones and remember to switch them off when they're finished. We'll start with doing introductions to my left and go around the room.
I'm Dave Ashmore, one of the councillors.
Alison Harper, Democratic Services.
Good morning, Derek Stone, Principal Licensing Officer.
Good morning. My name is Ben Attrell. I'm a solicitor employed by the Council and I'll be advising the subcommittee this morning.
Hi, I'm Chloe Wheeler. I'm the owner of The Hideaway.
Michelle Wheeler, Chloe's mum.
Anyone else wishing to speak at the meeting or want to?
Good morning, I'm Helen Stanley, a local resident.
Hello, I'm Uta Saunders, also a resident locally.
Hello, I'm Cathy Grant, I'm also a local resident.
Hi, I'm Sarah Gilbert, I'm a local resident.
Councillor Ian Holder.
Thank you, everyone. Next on the agenda is declaration of members' interests. Members, do we have any declarations of interest?
None from me.
No? Okay. So we move on to item 3 on the agenda, the Licensing Act 2 to 3 application for grant of premises licence, The Hideaway, 161 to 165 Highland Road, Southsea, PO4 9EY. Ben, can I hand over to you?
Yes, absolutely, Chair. The procedure note that had been disseminated for today was not the right one for this type of hearing. So what I've done is I've just taken a few minutes to pen the procedure, but I'll run through it first, Chair, and then I'll hand this up to you so you have it in front of you as well. So we've dealt with introductions and interests. The way the process normally follows is via this route. So the licensing officer will be asked to present the report, so it'll explain briefly what the application is about and the facts and summarise the representations that have led to today's hearing and the issues that need to be determined. All parties then will have the opportunity to question the licensing officer. So members usually start that process, questioning process off, and it then moves on to and I should stress that in terms of all parties, those residents that have indicated that they wish to speak today are formally a party to today's hearing. So when I talk about parties, that includes the applicant and the residents that have made written representations. I should probably also stress that residents will be restricted to only raising issues that they've already raised in their written representations. They can expand upon them, of course, but you shouldn't be raising anything new or additional that the applicant hasn't had a proper opportunity to address in advance of today's hearing, and that's just a basic natural justice, human rights point. So, trying to think where I've got to, the licensing officer presents his outline of the application. Everybody gets the opportunity to ask questions, starting with members, and then the applicant presents their case, outlines the application. Again, rounds of questions starting with members, and everybody gets the chance to ask questions after each party has spoken. It then will go through the interested parties, so the residents in turn will be able to address the subcommittee with, again, everybody being able to ask questions. So everybody will effectively, throughout the course of the hearing, have their opportunity to have their say and address the subcommittee directly, and then be questioned by all the other parties. So you needn't fear that something's going by and you're not getting the opportunity to address it. You can address it when you get your opportunity, but likewise you can ask questions at every step. So hopefully that's that makes for a very fair procedure. It gets everybody gets their say and gets the opportunity to ask questions of the other parties. Once all that has then taken place, each party will get the opportunity to sum up. So it's kind of then in reverse of the procedure that's followed. So previously it was licensing officer, applicant, interested parties. It then goes interested parties, licensing officer with the applicant to have the very final say before the subcommittee retires to make their decision. So summing up is just, after having been through all that process, if there's anything else that you feel you need to say or you just want to reiterate before the panel retires to make their decision, that's your final opportunity. In terms of retiring, I think what will happen is the subcommittee will remain in this room and then all the parties to the hearing will be asked to leave. I suspect that I will be invited to remain along with the democratic officer whilst they deliberate and make their decision in case they need any legal advice. If any legal advice is required, that will be explained in the decision when it's announced. You'll then be asked to come back into the room. Usually what happens is the chair will give an indication of perhaps at least half an hour or 3/4 of an hour, so you can safely go away knowing that the subcommittee is not going to reconvene before that period of time. But sometimes, of course, it does take longer depending on how difficult the issues are and what they have to work through whilst they're deliberating. So, Chair, that's the process. Hopefully that all makes sense. If there's any questions at this stage, happy to take them. But what I'll do is I've penned a quick note so you've got a sort of a mental reminder of that as you run through things.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Ben. Firstly, we'll hand over to the licensing officer to present the report.
Thank you, members. So the purpose of this hearing today is to consider an application for the grant of a new premises licence pursuant to Section 18 of the Licensing Act 2003. The matter has been referred to the committee for determination following receipt of relevant representations from a small number of local residents. The premises licence application has been submitted by Chloe Wheeler, who's here today to address you. And the licensable activities that were applied for was the sale of retail of alcohol, Monday to Sunday, 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock in the evening, the exhibition of a film, Monday to Sunday, 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock in the evening. And in the actual application, there's mention of the provision of recorded music and live music. Well, members, as you know, under the Live Music Act, which was first introduced in 2012 and amended in 2015, there is no requirement now for live or recorded music between 8 o'clock in the morning and 2300 hours if it's in licensed premises of less than 500 people. There's some seasonal variations as applied for on bank holidays, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, which you can see in the application. And basically the premises are going to, the application is for the premises to open Monday to Sunday from 7 o'clock in the morning to 2300 hours. The applicant has detailed in the operating schedule the steps intended to support and promote the licensing objectives, and these can be found in the redacted application form attached at Appendix A. A plan of the premises is attached at Appendix B. The provisions relating to the grant of a premises licence are contained within Part 3 of the Licensing Act 2003 and associated statutory regulations. Public notice has been given by way of a press notice, a premises notice, and local ward councillors were notified of the application. Therefore, there are no germane grounds for the committee to reject the application for non-compliance with prescribed advertising requirements. So in relation to the premises itself, 161 to 165 Highland Road, it's located on the corner of Hellier Road, and until recently was a scuba diving type water sports shop. The premises became vacant about a year ago, and it's now leased by the applicant, who plans to open a community-based licensed cafe at the venue. Relevant representations have been received from a ward councillor, plus a few local residents, as I've said. And the four that are going to address you today will be Mrs. Stanley, Mrs. Gilbert, Mrs. Grant, and Ms. Saunders. The general concerns are the lack of clarity in the application and how the business was going to operate. Several objections raised concerns with regard to the potential for noise and referenced another premises close by that had been a noise issue to some residents. If it helps you, members, I do have a copy of that premises licence, so you can see exactly how that one operates, the times and what conditions are on there, should that be necessary. One of the concerns raised was parking, which is not, as you know, a licensing consideration for this hearing, but it did feature in many of the representations. Copies of the redacted representations are attached in your bundle at Appendix C. Following the receipt of these objections, obviously I made contact with the applicant, and you'll see at Appendix D a letter that was prepared by Chloe and sent to all persons who made representations. And this was an attempt to explain the proposed business plan, to explain how the business would operate, in the hope that perhaps some of the objections, if not all, would be rescinded. None were. But this supported the application, and it set out the steps in the actual application, how the applicant proposes to support the 4 licensing objectives. Members, when determining the application, you must have regard to the promotion of the licensing objectives, which, as you know, are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. You also have to have regard to the Licensing Act, the adopted statement of licensing policy, judgments of the High Court, which your legal advisor can assist you with should that become necessary, the current statutory guidance issued by the Home Secretary in accordance with Section 182 of the Act, the representations including supporting information presented by all parties, and the human rights of all the parties concerned to ensure both a fair and balanced hearing, and to consider any public sector equality duty required from public bodies to have due regard to. Members, I don't think I wish to go through my report in full, other than to say, and I always point this out and stress this, paragraph 11 of the guidance does say that the proceedings set out in the 2003 Act for reviewing premises licence represent a key protection for the community where problems associated with the licensing objectives occur after the grant of a premises licence. So basically what it says at 11.2, at any stage following the grant of a premises licence, a responsible authority or any other person may ask the licensing authority to review the licence because of a matter arising at the premises in connection with any of the 4 licensing objectives. I don't think I need to say any more at this stage, but obviously I'll be here throughout the proceedings should you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Firstly, members, do we have any questions for the licensing officer at all?
Just reading through here, I might have missed it. So was there any concerns expressed by local police or environmental health?
No, we have no objections from any responsible authority.
Okay. Applicant, any questions for the officer at all? No. And residents, any questions?
I noticed you mentioned that the ward councillors had been informed about about this application, but was the intention that they would then pass that on to the residents? Because I don't think they did.
We're duty bound to notify ward councillors. What they do with the information, I don't know. It's not an obligation on their part to actually pass the information on.
Okay, unless there's any further questions for the officer, we move on to the applicant to present their case and outline the application.
Thank you. So, hi again, I'm Chloe Wheeler. I'm the owner of this family-run business living locally in Southsea. Thank you all for allowing me to help better Sorry, I get really bad inside.
Sorry, don't worry. It's just been a bit overwhelming, hasn't it? Okay, just take.
Don't worry. Take your time as much as you need.
Thank you all for allowing me to help better explain my aims and ambitions of the Hideaway in support of my application for an alcohol licence. I have spoken to a few residents that have come over the last couple of weeks and have understood the reason for the majority of objections was due to a fear of the unknown. as when the licence application went up, the premises was empty and I had not signed the lease yet, and I did not feel it was ethically correct to start knocking on doors and telling everyone the plans when legally the property was not yet mine. And so I understand people were concerned it would be a nightclub or some form of pub, which I do completely understand. However, this is far from the case. I also heard concerns due to new flats being built on both Helier and Oliver Road, which will result in the neighbourhood changing from a quieter residential area to becoming much more built up. I really do hear those concerns and understand the worry, but please, they shouldn't influence the final decision, as it is outside the scope and control of this premises licence application. I would, however, like to apologise for any initial concerns you all may have had, and I hope in addition to the letter I sent to those who made representations, that I can again now help to clear up any final concerns. The Hideaway's aim is to be a welcoming, professional and friendly space that offers a relaxed and welcoming environment. It is going to first and foremost run as a daytime cafe. The cafe would initially start with opening hours of 7 a.m. to 6 p.m, which will help those going to work come by and get a takeaway coffee in the morning. The cafe will be dog themed, but will also focus on being a family-friendly, community-focused place for all. There will be adequate room between all tables to ensure there is space for your pushchair, a comfortable place for your dog to sit, or enough space for a wheelchair. The Hideaway will focus on offering services that will bring the community together, such as exercise classes, support groups and workshops, which will mainly be held in the back room. I also welcome hearing any other ideas from the community that people may like. There are also 2 separate closed rooms that will aim to offer a more stable, frequent service that is limited in the area, such as a dog grooming and photography room. However, this may change based on demand. High-speed Wi-Fi has been installed to help accommodate remote workers who may want to pop in for a coffee or lunch, and any children and parents needing to undertake research for their homework that they may be unable to do at home, or whilst having a drink or snack. Longer opening hours have been applied for to have the option for flexibility. This may be to host an evening workshop or activity class that people may otherwise not have been able to attend during the day due to working hours, a supper club or quiz night, or even a wine tasting with a charcuterie board night. Seasonal variations will be based on demand. For example, over Christmas, people may want a Christmas-themed night with a film to watch. This is a new business and I intend to develop it as I go, which includes the potential for a more frequent dinner restaurant service and any socials in the evenings. With respect to noise, I am aware from neighbours and the local community that another coffee shop, like Mr. Stone has mentioned, has caused disturbances, and I would please like the Hideaway to be considered separately from them. I would like you to envision the Hideaway as a place similar to Pinero Lounge, with longer opening hours, and even though they are also a large premise, noise is only from people enjoying their food and drink, not causing any nuisance issue or safety concern to those nearby. Notices will also be put up to remind people to leave the cafe in a quiet and orderly manner, to have respect for those neighbours and people nearby. The outside seating area will be on private property and therefore could be used any time. However, with respect for local residents, I will abide by the Portsmouth City Council regulations and close the outside seating area by 9 p.m. If anyone coming to an evening event in particular that is a smoker, there will be a set smoking area, which you exit from the front of the cafe and turn right. So this area would therefore be to the left as you face the cafe. So people are firmly stood on the Highland Road side and not in close proximity to residents. This would help prevent any noise or smoke coming towards Helier and even Kimberley Roads. From receiving a sound insulation report from the landlords, there is 52 decibels for the ground floor shop and an extra 56 decibels coming from protection from the flats above, as well as there being 2 layers of plasterboard on timber studboard with double layer of fibre insulation, which in addition also offers 60 minutes of fire separation. And with these components together, there should be adequate safety net to prevent any sound travelling above. On the note of fire safety, we have also installed a comprehensive fire alarm system and equipment, which of course will be serviced annually, and all exit doors will be kept clear at all times. If live music is performed, this will firstly not be any loud heavy metal rock bands. Sound levels will be documented in a sound book to check the level of sound at different points of the premises on a 1 to 2 hourly basis should the music occur over that time frame. This enables us to monitor what others may be hearing from outside. Films have been requested to again have the option and flexibility to play should there be demand, which means they will not be played continuously from 10 a.m. every day of the week and more like, again, another set film night. Further sound measures will be considered for implementation, such as soundproofing curtains, should they be required in the future. And finally, I will address the concerns and plans around having an alcohol licence. I would please like to reassure everyone this is not for the use of drunken and disorderly behaviour. The Hideaway would like to offer people the option to come for a drink, to have one with their meal, such as a glass of wine or beer, or even a mulled wine at Christmas. If for whatever reason someone is breaching our focus of being a safe community-focused cafe, they will be immediately asked to leave and will be placed in our refusals book. Again, notices will be placed around to remind people to leave quietly and have regard for our neighbours. Any disposal of empty glass bottles will not occur as per regulations between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. to minimise disturbance to nearby residents. All staff will be trained on their responsibility for the sale of alcohol and ensure they also abide by the licensing objectives. Comprehensive CCTV will be installed, operated and maintained on the premise and will cover all licensable areas. The recording system will capture the required 4 frames per second, be securely retained for the minimum 31 days and provide a record of the date, time and place of the images, and signs will be displayed to alert customers to the use of CCTV. No irresponsible drinks promotions will be permitted and all staff will be trained on the Challenge 25 policy and all acceptable forms of identification. There have been no representations from any of the statutory authorities and I do not believe this area to be one of crime and disorder hotspots, nor will there be any posed risk to the local area by any of these licensable activities occurring. There are other local premises on Highland Road that do stay open and serve alcohol until 11 p.m, as well as other residential areas throughout Portsmouth, and therefore I hope you support this application. You may or not be aware that the premises has been vacant for a year, and by me taking on this lease, I hope I can contribute positively to the area and the community. I hope you can all trust the process, and I would like to personally welcome you all to the cafe upon its opening. And you can then see that this is solely a community-focused cafe that has the option to serve alcohol and to have the option to stay later than 6 p.m. in the future should there be demand. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much. Residents, members first, any questions for the applicant?
You've applied for a licence from 8 in the morning. Is that necessary? What do you plan to do from that early?
No, I was advised and it's to have the option that we can then bring it back.
What impact do you think it would have on your business if it was moved to, say, 10 or 11?
Realistically, I don't think anyone would be drinking alcohol at 8 a.m. anyway, and so I would welcome it being taken back to 10 a.m. for a more suitable time that would help the local residents, give them reassurance as well that that would just help them. If it was completely withdrawn, I think that would have quite a financial impact on the business, because there are lots of people, particularly in the summer, that do quite like a glass of wine or a pint of beer on a Saturday afternoon, for example. You're welcome.
Members, if it helps, the general advice is when people contact us, we always say, apply for the longest hours you want, because it saves them having to come back later on, potentially putting in for a variation and costing more money. The early morning one is often for people who have like a Bucks Fizz or something like that, if they've with their early start, their breakfast.
Yeah, just one. Hi, just one. Under the provision of live music, you've ticked yes, but that's the only one where there's no start or end hours on that. So, and you said it's not something you'll have regularly. So, but can you give us an idea of what hours you'd expect that to be?
Sure. So the reason there wasn't time stated is because of the Act, the Live Music Act, where actually, if it's a licensed premise, it could run any time up until 11 o'clock anyway. So it would be evenings, and it would stop at a reasonable hour, so by 9:30, 10 o'clock. And typically it would be more towards the weekends. So again, it wouldn't be a Monday night when everyone's settling down after a long day at work. It would be more Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday afternoon, for example.
Thank you.
You mentioned about the existing soundproofing that's in place there. Have you given consideration to if additional soundproofing is needed, especially with the property above the premises? What action would you take in that instance?
So you can put soundproofing tiles and an extra layer of sound insulation on the ceiling. I'm hoping there is also, I think it was a meter between my floor and the ground floor flats floor, as well as all the other timber stubboard and things. So with that as it is, I'm hoping it would be adequate because there's quite a lot of protection there, but you can also then add the extra soundproofing tiles and layers if needed.
Thank you very much. No more questions from members. Residents, is there any questions you'd like to pose to the applicant?
Hi, Chloe. Yeah, I just wondered, you said about having opening hours in the evenings for like workshops and activities, but then you kind of went on and said, oh, but there might be like dinner and restaurant service. And so at some point, will it just be an open cafe until, say, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night?
So the idea would be that if there is demand, then to eventually run a restaurant service. So it would still be dinner. It wouldn't just be it's not going to be a pub where it's only drinks. It would be a dinner service, a restaurant service. But that's subject to better kitchen equipment and if there's demand and things like that.
Yeah, I think I was just checking, I think the sort of evening activities, workshop sounds like a kind of closed thing where you have like a set group of people that come in, whereas dinner service means it's just open. So there's more coming and going, I guess, is what
Yeah,
I was
so
wondering about.
they would be separate, because obviously the cafe dining area, I've also restricted the number of seats. So again, just to help control the actual footfall of the main cafe dining area. So eventually there would be people having a dinner service, whilst there might be a yoga class going on in the back room at 7 o'clock, for example, in that side.
Yeah. So effectively the cafe might be open till 11 o'clock at night.
Eventually, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Which is why the hours have been applied for now. So like Mr. Sonstead's, to avoid having to do all of the variations later down the line.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Chloe. I just wanted to ask, sorry, Callie. I just wanted to ask about the extra hours that you've asked for. So you've said on special nights, and you've stated some ones, so Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Day. And I just wanted to check what other special nights. I think part of my concern, we'll obviously have a chance to give our representations, but part of my concern is the vagueness of the timings of that. So once the licence has been granted, anything can then happen between those hours. And I'm just a bit concerned about the special nights that you've talked about. And is the special night every Saturday night, or are we talking? It seems quite vague, and that's the concern for me. So the 2 a.m. opening time, for example. So you've got particular dates where you've said about a 1 a.m. in the morning opening time. And also it says it's not restricted to those. So my concern is how often are you going to be running those special nights when you'll be serving alcohol until 2 o'clock in the morning?
So the 2 o'clock in the morning is New Year's Eve, and that's a once a year occasion. The 1 a.m.s were like a bank holiday, which again, it's just to have the option for a bank holiday, and that would be more so in the summer. I don't think people people do stay out till 1 o'clock in the morning, but in the winter. But the other special occasions per se, it's just to mainly be able to stay up until 11 o'clock. And then if someone really wants to host a later night event till midnight or 1 o'clock, then I could apply for which would be a variation. Then you get a temporary event notice at those other times, but it would not be every Saturday, and probably would not be monthly or 2 monthly. It would be literally on occasion.
I guess this is the important bit here, isn't it, about establishing those timings and what needs to then be reapplied for afterwards. Because obviously, if you've got an open-ended licence until 1 o'clock in the morning, that's very different from having a licence till 10 or 11 and then having to apply, and that's the bit I'm confused about in this process.
So I've applied until 11 o'clock for everything, with the bank holiday, New Year's Eve exceptions of the later times. Anything else that, for example, would occur later, if they were to, if there's a need for it, then I would just apply for that as a temporary
Okay, so that's really clarified things for me. So you've only got a licence up until 11 o'clock. You need to be shut by 11, apart from those dates you specified on your licence conditions.
Yeah.
And anything else above and beyond that you need to apply for.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
You mentioned just now about some outside seating. But I thought in the original application you actually said that you weren't going to have any outside seating. Did I misread that, or is this something that's just come in?
No, you might be thinking I referred to there'd be no outside DJs, because I think the other...
I'm sure it said seating on the original application.
I don't think so.
No, I got that wrong.
it was mentioned. That was one of my concerns.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. But there's no music outside, and there's not going to be any speakers outside.
No.
No. Okay.
Sorry, I've got a question, particularly regarding the bank holidays you've just mentioned and the summer. So for me, that's actually a particular concern. If you're opening really late in the summer, that's exactly when we would have our windows open at night. And our window's literally across the road. So on a bank holiday, may it be open till 1 o'clock? That would be quite a huge concern for me, noise-wise.
Yeah.
So during the summer, it would still only be till 11 o'clock, and then if there is demand, a bank holiday is twice over the whole summer, I think, May and August. So it would be potentially only 2 occasions in the 3-4 month period that it may be open later. And our door would stay shut as well, and our windows would be closed to prevent that travelling. And if we do stay open later on a bank holiday, I would always put a notice up in the window to give you the heads up. I'm happy to tell you.
Yeah. I mean, the main concern is not necessarily, I mean, it's obviously music will be of concern because it's all glass front, so I'm a bit worried about that too, but it's the people coming and going, leaving at 1 o'clock, and I can't imagine after they've had a whole day of drinking, they will be in the friendliest of moods, so I mean, that is of course a concern.
That's where the notices will come into play, so we will be putting notices up to remind people to leave orderly. You know, and like I said, it's not every week, it's not every month, it's twice a year, for example, you know.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
May I ask who you anticipate would be coming to these later sessions? Because in your application, you mentioned having employing door staff to manage the crowds. Now, so far, you know, you talked about it being community-based space. That doesn't suggest to me crowd management, and I'm just wondering who you're expecting to turn up.
I'm not sure which application got released. That was something where I'd done my research, and that was applicable for any licensed venue. Now, on discussion with other people, that's not needed for licensable venues. It's only if it's a different type of premise. So there wouldn't need to be door staff if it's just a cafe with 50 people. If it's just a cafe? It is just a cafe.
Okay, unless we've got any more questions, we'll move over to the interested parties, being the residents that we've got today who'd like to speak. So yeah, if you'd like to take it in turn, please.
Thank you, Chloe. I appreciate you trying to allay our fears. And I just wanted to say, firstly, that I want to make it clear that I've got no objection for a cafe at all, if this is in fact what it's going to be. I think it's a really lovely idea to have, and Highland Road, it does need some regeneration, and so I don't have any problems with it being a cafe. I think the problem I have is that, like a lot of the neighbours who can't be here today, unfortunately, because it's a work day on a Monday morning, We have a bit of concern still about the nature of its use, and I think I've heard some of the things that Chloe's had to say, and it's kind of settled my mind a little bit in terms of some of those things. But I just wanted to have an opportunity to just sort of say what I think about it. It seems to be quite wide-ranging, and it's being advertised as a multi-venue cafe, bar, bistro, dog services among the list. And I'm a bit concerned about what it feels quite confused. The licence application says about live music, and the live music bit and the bit in the evening is the bit that most concerns me. I'm a local resident. I live very close to this premises. And it concerns me that there's no specifics around when that live music is going to be given. And I think the concern is for all of us and the people that can't be here today is once that licence is granted, once those opening hours are granted, anything can kind of happen then. And so there seems to be a bit of a disconnect still about what the licence is asking for and what you're actually proposing it's being used for. It's vague, the application is vague, and it completely misses out some of the stuff regarding the local music, the live music and the late opening, which, as my colleague has just said, you know, it does concern us. There's quite a big difference between having an evening meal with ambient music to a live music venue serving alcohol to late opening, and I think that needs to be clarified. And I think there needs to be agreement about timings around this. And if, you know, I don't know whether I can have an influence or that, and anybody else can, but I think it needs pointing out. This is a residential area full of families. Presumably this is why the owner has chosen this area, and because there's an emphasis on it being family friendly and community focused. But I think having a 7 a.m. opening cafe until late at night, opening hours with potential for live music and the potential for a large outdoor seating outside is not particularly family friendly. Even if closing at 9 o'clock and everybody goes at 9 o'clock, or the outside seating area is closed at 9 o'clock, putting your children to bed in the summer with the windows open. We've had this from the local cafe. I know that they don't want to be seen in the same light as this local cafe, but that's the reality. The reality is that the sound travels across the graveyard. We're on the graveyard side. The sound travels, and in the evening it has been very, very difficult to put children to bed in the summer when the windows have been open. There are no other venues that operate with these such extended hours, with or without an alcohol licence. And as I say, there was one cafe that set up post-COVID, which the licence, as far as I'm aware, wasn't advertised. We didn't see any posts outside the property, and that's understandably why people are now nervous about this happening, because once the licence was granted, I believe until 12 o'clock at night, he doesn't go till 12 o'clock at night, but there's often things in the evening happening, ironically, more recently not. But also early in the morning, there's large groups of joggers that go past, for example, at 7 o'clock in the morning and stop outside the cafe, and it causes a lot of noise disturbance early in the morning on a Sunday and also in the evening. And I think we can't ignore that when we're thinking about this one as well, and that's why people are nervous about this. I think it's a shame. I understand why the owner's suggesting that she couldn't have engaged people with this before you got your licence. But ultimately, I think it's a shame because actually, if some sort of outreach into the community were to have happened beforehand, there would have been less opposition. I think if you'd asked the local community, certainly the immediate local community, what they wanted from a community cafe that took into account the local community, late night live music and late night opening times wouldn't have been something that was top of the list. And I think the issue there for me is that while the daytime plan is there and while the cafe plan is there for the daytime, if you give extended licence up until 11 o'clock at night, then anything can therefore happen. And so therefore I want to respectfully ask that consideration is given to the local area, and that the opening times are suitable for what is being proposed verbally, which is a daytime cafe and community space, and that consideration is very much given to the opening times for the evening, which will have a significant impact on the local community. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Ute Saunders. I also wanted to point out, first of all, that I'm also welcoming the idea of a cafe. And so when we heard rumours it's going to be a cafe down the end of the road, it sounded very promising. And I agree that I don't have any objections against that part. So the idea up till 6 o'clock is not a problem for me at all. But what my main concern was when I read the application, I was really confused about the 8 o'clock start of the alcohol license, which I really think is totally unnecessary for any premise, let alone a cafe. And again, like Helen said as well, it's very vague on the on anything after 6 o'clock. So my worry is midweek, if this is a premise, if these premises are going to be open until 11 o'clock with our bedroom window literally across the road, I cannot help but worry about the noise. In the application, there was some mentioning as well of takeaway drinks available, which for me is an issue in terms of litter in the roads surrounding the area, but also if it's alcoholic drinks, will we have people with their cups literally coming up the road? That's one of my major concerns, really, that it will change the lovely community that we have into a very disturbed area. So that would be my main concerns. And the other concern I had, which Chloe has addressed, was the outdoor seating, because that had no time frame given with it. And yeah, well, it's at the front of the cafe, it will travel to our roads, so it will be definitely something. If people are sitting there having a drink, they'll be chatting, it will definitely impact on noise. So that's my main concerns that I have with this venue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, again, I'd say thank you very much to Chloe for trying to allay our fears, or my fears, about what was intended for this property. And I'm not going to go through my whole representation, obviously, but I remain concerned about the sale of alcohol from 8 o'clock in the morning, opening time, until closing time at night, for consumption on and off the premises. I can see no reason why a community cafe would need to be selling alcohol for off the premises. And the only reason for this, in my view, is that this is a very large space to be filling. The rent is going to be very high, and therefore the income that is going to be required is going to be fairly substantial. And I suspect that that may be part of the reason why alcohol for sale off the premises is being requested, and that for me is an issue. And as I mentioned earlier on, my other concern is an element of mission creep, in that once the premises are open, whether or not it's going to be a cafe during the day, yeah, fine, I've got no problems with that at all. But whether or not after dark, for example, it turns into more of a venue with music and drinking and spilling out onto the street and that sort of thing, because, as you said earlier on, I believe that you don't need a special license for playing your music on the premises, and this is a relatively quiet area. It's not beautiful, okay, but it's a residential area, and we don't want a lot of people turning up to what could end up as a nightclub. So, as I say, I genuinely have no objection if this is going to be a cafe, but I'm not convinced that actually at some point, maybe not now, but in the future, it turns out to be something that's not a cafe, it's more of a nightclub. And as I say, I remain very concerned about the selling of alcohol for consumption off the premises during the opening hours. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Hi. Yeah, I don't want to repeat everything that everyone's just said, because they've all put it very well. But yeah, my main concern is about noise. And if it's open till 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, there will inevitably be some noise. I live about 4 doors away from the cafe. And, I have to get up very early for work, and I don't see how having something that's open that late I just don't think it can help but have a detrimental effect on my ability to sleep at night, and also the ability for my neighbours to sleep and their children to get to sleep at a reasonable time. So even the normal hours of 11 o'clock at night is just too late, I feel. Yeah, but I don't want to repeat everything that everyone's just said very well. So my preference would be the kind of initial opening hours of opening till 6 p.m. sounds very reasonable. And like the others, I'm really pleased about the idea of having a cafe there. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, do we have any questions for the residents at all?
From me, no.
No, and from the applicant to the residents?
Not a question as such, but I just want to say I'm not applying for changes in the opening hours. This is an alcohol licence hearing. But I completely hear all of your points, and I would please like to say this is not a nightclub. Like, please come in when it's open and you'll see for yourselves. It's really far from a nightclub. Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Okay, thank you. Well, we've heard from all parties, so now we come to summing up. Go on, sorry. Okay.
Sorry, I was just wondering. Thank you, Chloe. I was just wondering. In that case, so this is about whether whether you're going to grant a licence until 11 o'clock at night. If there's no proposed change, so if you're not proposing to change or reduce the hours, what you're saying is this is for an alcohol licence application. So this decision is about whether you can open till 11 o'clock at night. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So we come to summing up now. Firstly, we go to the residents. If there's anything you'd like to sum up in terms of what you've had to say, or if there's anything particular.
I guess my concern is just what's been said, because my concern is, are you as a panel making a decision about whether you either, is it black or white like that? Is it either that you grant it today till 11 o'clock or you don't grant it? Or is there a decision being made about whether the hours are being reduced? In light of the concerns, because that's my concern, and that's the bit that's concerned me the most about this hearing just now. Because if this is an alcohol licence application, that's very different from whether there's an opening hours, if there's rules around the opening hours. So that's my concern, and that's just made me
Chair, I can
concerned.
just address that. So the application is for the sale of alcohol. That's the licensable activity, along with exhibition of film. Recorded and live music has been included in the application, but it need not have been because of the implications of the Live Music Act, as you've heard. So, yes, in order to be able to sell the alcohol and conduct those licensable activities, it's possible to restrict the opening hours. If the premises was not intending to conduct licensable activities, so not to sell alcohol or play films, etc., then it need not have a license, and it could operate as it wishes. So, insofar as the premises wants to conduct licensable activities, it requires a license. You're able to grant the license as expressed, or you can impose conditions. You can restrict the hours. You have those restrictions have to be justified on the evidence that you've heard today. And it's always very difficult, I think, when you have new premises, because clearly evidence of how the business is going to run and operate just simply isn't there, because it's a brand new business, it's fresh, so to speak. And I probably should just take a moment perhaps to explain to you members how, and I know you are fully aware of this, you've all had training, but I think for the benefit of everybody that's here, to explain how the Licensing Act operates a little bit, because clearly there used to be the provision where you would apply to the Magistrates' Court for your licence, and the Licensing Act has totally changed the way that licensing works in the UK. So now there's an application process, and everybody gets the opportunity to object if they have objections, and then there's a hearing such as today. The Licensing Act is very permissive in the way that it operates. The guidance surrounding the Act very much is permissive in the first instance, so to speak, because particularly where there's very little evidence of how a business is actually operating, you've heard reassurances from the business how it is intending to operate its premises licence if it's granted. If, when it comes to fruition and the business starts to operate 6 months, a year down the line, it starts to change how it operates, and actually it doesn't operate in the way that it's reassured yourselves and residents. There is whilst the Act is very permissive in the first instance, there is very strict controls in place that go along with that initial permissive approach to rein in and address issues at premises. So I've heard mention, for example, that I think there's a fear that once this license is granted, that it's set in stone effectively, and that once it's there, it's there. That's certainly not the case. Any single resident can ask for a review of the premises license if there are issues concerning noise or any of the licensing objectives, whether it be nuisance or prevention of crime and disorder, etc. So there are processes in place for residents to call in premises licenses if there are issues further down the track. So certainly there are very strong controls, and premises licenses can be revoked ultimately. Protracted process, but it's possible. That certainly is potentially the case if they are not suitable and they're not being run in the way that they're as advertised, so to speak, down the line. I think that perhaps helps just set the scene a little bit, perhaps addresses residents' concerns a little bit, but so far as your decision making is concerned today, and to actually answer the nub of the question, you do have the legal power to restrict the hours, to grant it in part or in full, to grant those parts that you think are appropriate, but you have to base that decision on the evidence that you've heard. That evidence, obviously you've heard much about fears and anticipation about what may occur, but not obviously what actually is occurring. So placing heavy restrictions at this stage may be difficult on the balance of the evidence that you've heard, but that, of course, is a matter for yourselves to consider when you retire, to consider the application.
Thank you for that, Ben. And hopefully that gives some explanation to residents. Go on, sorry.
Can I just ask, thank you for explaining that, can I just ask, can it happen the other way? Because surely it's better to give extra than try and retract back. So can that condition happen the other way, where somebody is granted certain hours, and then if it goes well and things are okay, then you can add on extra? Can it go the opposite way? Because surely that it's better to start small and go big.
It certainly can, but I think it's very much the guidance, and the Act does encourage. I mean, the whole premise of the Act was that responsible premises should be given the opportunity to run in the way that they see fit, and that doesn't actually cause an issue. However, if they do later cause an issue, there are very strict measures in place to address those issues if and when they do occur, and then obviously there will be very clear evidence of that. There are also other statutory controls. Environmental Health are able to take action under the Environmental Protection Act and serve notices and address noisy premises if and when they occur. But yes, that's the way the Licensing Act is. It is a sea change in the way that the legislation operates, but it is generally very permissive in the first instance, with the opportunity to deal. Effectively, it gives premises, particularly new premises, the rope, if you like, with which to hang themselves. So if they set up shop and they say, we are going to be just a small community hub, very occasional late evenings with a little bit of alcohol alongside food, 6 months later it turns into a very noisy nightclub, bar, vertical drinking establishment, people spilling out into the streets, vomiting, that sort of thing. the residents, the police, environmental health will all have concerns about that, and they'll all be able to bring a review of the premises licence, come back to another hearing like today, and have their opportunity to then deal with those issues at that stage. And I appreciate that's concerning for residents, because they obviously have fears. That's why we're here today. But that's the legal process. So.
I think with the best will in the world, a few posters up inside the cafe to tell residents to be quiet isn't going to stop people from trudging down Highland Road at 11 o'clock at night shouting and swearing and making noise disturbance. To me, it feels like it needs restricting, but that's fine.
Please, can I say something? I just want to say, if you think of it, Panera Lounge are open till 11 o'clock and they serve alcohol till 11 o'clock. Their customers are having a glass of wine with dinner. They're residential, there's flats above, and locally, their customers don't come stumbling down the road. I just want to make that comparison.
I appreciate that. That's a place, that's a whole road full of pubs and nightclubs. That's not a residential area in the middle.
It's the same type of premise, though.
That's fine. We can agree to disagree on that.
It's not the same.
Sorry, I think we're up to the licensing officer to sum up. Were we, Ben?
Yeah, I think so. Unless any party's got anything else that they want to say from the interested parties, from the residents, by way of summing up.
It's just, if it is just a cafe, then I don't see the need for the alcohol licence in the first place. So I'm still confused about what this place is actually meant to be. I'm sorry. So if it is a late night evening venue, I understand the alcohol, but I would not appreciate that midweek in a family residential area. If it's a cafe, I do not see the need for this licence. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Derek. Do you want to sum up your...
I don't think I need to add any more other than just to say that a number of cafes now will apply for alcohol licences because obviously they want to give that opportunity to their customers. And the advice we would give in relation to the off sales, I know people have concerns about that, but what we find is a lot of venues now who are giving food, if somebody purchases a bottle of wine and they don't want to consume the whole bottle there and then, and they want to take it home with them, they have to have the opportunity of an off sale on their licence to take advantage of that, if that helps. Thank you.
Thank you. And the applicant, if you'd like to sum up, please.
I just want to say this is not a nightclub. I don't know how much more I can reiterate that. Obviously, alcohol doesn't have to be served till 11 o'clock, but it would be nice to have the flexibility to stay open till 11 o'clock should the premise want that and be able to offer that. Have you got anything?
I think it's just reiterating what Chloe said. This is a new venture. She put a lot of time and money in it, and she wants to, as she said, help to give opportunities for jobs and provide a nice facility in the area, and to have the flexibility to be able to open till 11 with an alcohol licence is what she's asking for.
Thank you, everyone. It's just gone 11 o'clock, I believe, or we just hear the bells. So what will happen now is the committee will retire to make its decision. Shall we say back here in half an hour, or?
I think perhaps 40 minutes.
40 minutes, okay.
As a bare minimum, so the subcommittee won't reconvene before 40 minutes from now.
Okay, so if we say reconvene at 11:45. Yeah, 45 minutes.
And one thing I'll just add is if during the break you happen to bump into any of the members who may be walking to the toilet or to buy some sandwiches or something, please don't try to talk to them. They won't talk to you. It just causes all kinds of issues if there's any kind of conversation between parties between now and the decision being announced. And that applies to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.